Hey, what's up, guys? So I want to talk today about how I successfully negotiated a $100,000 raise with my manager at the hedge fund I most recently worked at, and how you can do it too. Before I get into those details, I thought it was important to lay out the foundation on the psychology behind why some people get large raises and other people don't. So back when we were all in academia, right? If you hung out with like the smart, ambitious kids, there was always at least one person who would severely downplay how much they studied for an exam. Like, you'd see them at the library studying for 24 hours, and if you asked them how much they studied for the exam, they'd say, oh, I didn't really study, or like, oh, I studied for like 1 hour. It's probably obvious to you why they do this, but the reason they do this is because they want you to think they're really smart. And you kind of wonder, why wouldn't they want you to think they're hardworking? Isn't being hardworking a virtue? You know, isn't that an attribute that you want other people to admire about you? What these people understand is that you get way more respect for being smart than for being hardworking. And this is because hard work only beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. And so the person with talent has way higher potential than the person who's hardworking. And that's where all the respect comes from. So that's the same reason why elite tech firms give you all these leet code algorithm type questions, even if you might never try to solve for a palindrome or whatever in your entire life. Those leet code type questions are actually just IQ tests in disguise. I hear a lot of people saying, why do they test for this? We're probably not even going to use this. GitHub Copilot and other AI is going to code for us. So why is it even important? It's because those questions are actually just IQ tests in disguise. It's very politically incorrect for these big companies to say it. So you'll never hear their HR department say it. But the main thing they care about is intelligence. All those other values they talk about, like workplace fit, culture, that's all mostly nonsense. The main thing that drives a company forward is intelligence. And that's why in books and TV shows, everyone loves the flawed genius character. That's why Sherlock Holmes is the main character and Watson is his sidekick. If Dr. Watson was the main character and Sherlock was the sidekick, no one would want to read those books because we don't care about Dr. Watson, a guy who's moderately intelligent. We just want him as a narrator. We're intrigued by Sherlock Holmes because he's a genius, right? And we want to know how his mind works. And ultimately, we value Sherlock Holmes. We know that all the great leaps forward in investigating the case are going to come from his brilliant mind. And that's what's fascinating to us. And everyone loves these kind of flawed genius archetypes, you know, Good Will Hunting, Dr. House. They're very interesting. Firms want to hire the Sherlock Holmes character. They don't want to hire Dr. Watson. And so in the interview screening process, all those leet code type questions, they're trying to get a feel for whether you're Sherlock Holmes. They're ultimately screening for geniuses. That's what they're looking for. And when they think they found one, the range of compensation they're willing to pay you, the lid comes off of the ceiling. It goes through the roof. That, at least in free market capitalism, the amount of money they're willing to pay you, the figures are insane. Like, you wouldn't even expect it. And it makes sense because intelligence works the same way. Someone who's 3 standard deviations smarter than the average person is not a little bit smarter than the average person. He's a lot smarter than the average person, to the point where they're almost not the same species. So you wouldn't pay that person roughly like 3 times more. You'd pay them like 30 times more. And that's something I think a lot of people don't understand about capitalism, is if compensation figures are free floating, once you find someone who's exponentially smarter than other people, you have to pay them exponentially more to get access to their talent. I don't know why human intelligence is so wide ranging. I honestly think it's unfair. I feel like the world would be a much simpler place if normal distribution behind human intelligence was a little more narrow, because it causes a lot of issues in society when some people are so much smarter than other people. I won't get too into that because it's politically incorrect, but if you're a person who studies history, you know this is true. And I think, you know, we saw a lot of it in World War II, for example. So firms want to hire the Sherlock Holmes character. And so why is that? When you're in academia and you're doing a case study or a team project and you're working on a team with the genius guy immediately sees all the angles and he finds the most efficient path forward for how to solve the problem. And ultimately you all just end up letting him do all the work, and you just do all the busy work that he doesn't want to do. That's just the natural order, because the second smartest guy in the group is so much less smart than the genius guy that It simply isn't logical to sort of distribute the work evenly. You just let the genius guy do his thing, and then you just help doing the boring things that he doesn't want to do. And academia is preparation for the real world, right? So this is what happens in the real world as well. In the real world, unlike academia, there isn't a solution manual at the end of the book. You're usually pushing the boundaries on uncharted territory. You're solving problems that don't have answers yet. And you're the first one to try to discover the answer. So the difference with the real world is that you don't realize if there was a more efficient way to solve the problem. And no one's going to waste their time looking at old work and reviewing it to see whether there was a more efficient way, because there's new problems to solve that haven't been solved yet. So you don't find out whether you made a poor design decision until much later, or you might just never find out. And so this is why it's so much more important in the real world to have a genius type character who can see all of the angles and find the most efficient and straight path forward to the solution that saves you months of time and saves you a ton of money as well. And the genius archetype guy can see those angles, but everyone else can't. And corporations know this. They say it quietly in private conversations, but they know and understand this, and they don't want hard-working, average intelligence people stumbling through to try to solve the problem. They want geniuses finding the most efficient path forward to solve the problem. Winning firms simply have smarter people. You can feel their intelligence through the products they release. When Facebook was the hottest place to work for a while there, all of my smartest friends in HCAN all wanted to work there or were working there. And when you compared it to MySpace, you could just feel the intelligence behind the design. When they first added tagging and just the layout, how smooth the pages would load, you could just feel the intelligence of the engineers through the product. And it became abundantly clear that Facebook was going to be the big winner in the social media space, and MySpace was going to go the way of the dinosaurs. But you loaded MySpace and it took like 5 seconds for someone's page to load, and it was just cluttered and buggy, and you just knew that MySpace wasn't going to last. And that's the difference of intelligence. So intelligence is ultimately what drives a corporation to success and outperform its competitors. And upper management knows and understands this, but they don't spell it out because it's politically incorrect. But once you understand this, it's key to how to negotiate a really huge raise. So it was peak pandemic, circa 2021, and I was living in Brickell, Miami, working remotely for this Chicago-based hedge fund. So as you probably know, Miami's a major party town, and it was the only town that was open during COVID. So I was just partying every day and just like drinking and doing drugs and going on dates over lunch on like weekdays. And I was actually dating this girl from the Fresh and Fit podcast, which is pretty funny. And yeah, this one time I went to a Nas concert at Club 11, and it was at like 4 a.m. on a Monday, to give you an idea of how crazy of a party town Miami is. Anyways, things were going fine. All of a sudden we get this announcement that the firm is hiring this new director who's a partner in Wall Street Investment Bank, one of those banks with two names back to back. And he's gonna shake things up at the hedge fund. And so he comes in and he's this kind of fast-talking asshole guy who's really crude and just bullying people and like firing people left and right and just pushing people out of the group. And we're all like, oh shit, this guy is serious. He's making a lot of enemies pretty quickly, but he's been given a lot of power, so he's using his power. So immediately I'm like, oh, I gotta get my act together. First impressions matter, right? So I start working really hard and like, trying to make a good first impression. I don't know where things are going to head with this new guy in charge. So I start internally looking to move to another group because they're doing some interesting quant work and their desk is doing pretty well. So I'm kind of like networking internally to see if, I could be a quant on their desk. But this director guy reaches out to me and he tells me, hey, I hear you understand this tech stack the best. And we have this high visibility project that we need to get done for the founder. This is around the time Bitcoin first had its major rally up. So this project was based on setting up a trading system around Bitcoin and Bitcoin ETFs and Bitcoin futures, and building out like a pricing model that would give you signals on when arbitrage opportunities existed between the three. He told me like, this is like super high visibility, super high priority. We need it yesterday. How quickly can you get this thing done? I'm like, I think everyone knows the rules of this. You just like overshoot the number. So I'm like, maybe like 2 months. He's like, okay, fine. Try to get it done in 1 month though. All right. And so that call ends. And I'm like, all right, this is it. This is pretty much my test. He's going to make a snap judgment about me based on how I do on this project. So for the next week straight, I work every waking hour. I don't know what that would be, like 16 hours a day on building this thing out. It's like written in multiple languages because it needs to talk to all these different parts of the tech stack. So it's like C#, Java, Python. I get this whole thing done in a week. Like I work all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And then I don't tell anyone I'm working that hard on it. And then I just announce it to him in a group meeting or something. I'm just like, oh, hey, yeah, I got that thing done, by the way. Well, I'm going to show it to you guys. And it works perfectly. He's all concerned that I rushed through it. He's like, wait, did you QA test it? Are there unit tests? And I'm like, yeah, I built all those. Here's the unit test, blah, blah, blah. And he's like super shocked and impressed. Like, wow, this is amazing. You knocked this out of the park, buddy. And then so after that group stand up, he's like, hey, let's talk one-on-one. And then he's like, dude, you are a rock star. Where have you been? I had no idea you were this talented, man. I was thinking about pushing you out of the group, but now I got different plans, buddy. And I'm like, okay, thanks for your honesty. And he's like, yeah, here's what we're going to do. Let me know if you're up for this. We're going to push your boss out of the team. We're going to give you his spot and you're going to report directly to me. All right. You're a rock star and I need to be working directly with you. We're going to make things happen. All right. And I'm like, okay, can I think about it? And he's like, yeah, but don't think too long, just 1 or 2 days. All right. And get back to me about it. All right. So I'm like, okay, cool. So this is the situation you want to get yourself in when you're working at a corporation. And this is how you play something like this. I was already working on trying to join another trade desk. I already knew the guys over there. I've done work with them before. They like and respect me. So I'm like, all right, I kind of have that half in my pocket. So I can kind of lean on that. So I have two options. And basically I need to lean them against each other. That's the idea. So I got the guys in the other group and I got them to agree that they could give me an offer in the other group if I wanted it. And then now I could lean on that to negotiate better with this like jerk tech director guy. What I ended up doing is I wrote him an email. And I went with an email because it gives you the chance to gather your thoughts most clearly and state your case most strongly and as efficient and eloquent of a way possible. So just to paraphrase the email, like let's say this director's name is John. It went something like, hi, John. It's been exciting working with you and getting to know you. I understand your vision for the hedge fund and how you want to grow it and in what direction you want to move things. And I think that you're going to need a lot of people behind you to help you achieve your vision. For the hedge fund to succeed, we need to get help from a lot of adjacent departments and we need people on our side so we can reach our goals. I've been at the firm for about 5 years and I have a deep network of colleagues and relationships with people in other departments that I can call on when I need their help. And if I'm being honest with you, I think we both know that you've made a lot of enemies at the firm and you need someone who has a good reputation, is well liked, and can get other teams to work with us so we can achieve our mutual goals. Unfortunately, I'm leaning towards joining another desk because I know the people on that team and this transition has been in the works for a little while now, but I also like the idea of working with you. Here's what I propose. I can work with you to get you where you want to be. I know you want to be at the C level, CTO, CFO, whatever. I can get you there if we work together, but I want you to pull me up with you. So here's what I propose. If you can get me a $100,000 raise, then you can call on me whenever you want to. You can call me at 10 p.m. on Saturday night. Here's my personal phone number. And we'll work 100 hours a week together and knock it out the park. And you'll get to the C level. You can pull me up with you. So that's what I propose. And if you don't think that this relationship is working, then you can just push me out of the group at any time. So let me know if this is something that works for you. Thank you. You see, he thinks I got that project done that quickly because I'm some kind of genius 10x engineer. But I didn't tell him that I was working 15 hours a day. He thinks I just pumped out all that code like in record speed because I'm just some kind of genius. And so he thinks that by being able to call on me at any time and working 100 hours a week with him, he'll get 3 or 4 times more productivity out of me, and he can ride me to the top. That's what he's thinking. And so he's willing to give me that raise because it simply makes sense for him. Big leaps in progress by departments are usually off the backs of 1 or 2 geniuses. And this is something managers will never tell you. The output by individuals is not even close to being evenly distributed. It's almost always off the backs of 1 or 2 brilliant people. I'm laying out the groundwork for him to think that I'm going to be that guy for him in order to secure my $100,000 raise. Now you're probably thinking, well, what if you can't uphold those standards? You're sort of setting yourself up to fail. No, not really, because I knew this guy wasn't going to last. He was making a lot of enemies at the firm, and I knew I just had to work hard enough and hang around long enough until he got laid off, and then I could keep my new title and my new salary. So he gets my email, and a day or 2 passes, and then he goes, hey, let's hop on a Zoom call. I'm like, okay. It's like Friday at like 5 p.m. Like most people are pretty much heading out for the week. He goes, hey man, so strong email, you stated your case. I respect your negotiation offer. And he's like, so you're good with me calling you at any time? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And he's like, all right, we're gonna do this. And he's like, you, this is kind of like homo, but he goes, you and me, baby, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go straight to the top. All right, I'll get you your raise. We're gonna work our asses off until we make it to the top. All right. And I'm like, you got it, deal. And he's like, deal. All right, have a good weekend. Rest up. We're gonna be working our asses off from here. And I'm like, you got it, for sure. Let's do it. So in summary, right? They say EQ matters more than IQ in terms of how far you get in your career and how much money you make and things like that. And I firmly believe that this is true. I have an older brother who's actually way more book smart than me. We went to a pretty elite high school, and he was the top math student in the high school. He was pretty competitive at like the national level and those math Olympiads and things like that. And he was definitely more book smart than me, though, I wasn't always trying, to be fair. I was kind of a party kid in high school. He's like senior principal something engineer at miscellaneous tech firm. And he has this like lofty title, but at my peak at the hedge fund, I was making multiples of his total comp. And it's because I understand how to finesse people. Like I understand how people think and how to play the game, basically. Because my EQ is higher than his. He's just like your typical kind of quiet, autistic, nerdy Asian guy who, can solve like crazy complicated math problems, but doesn't understand how people think and what people want. So there's a hidden lesson there. Understanding how people think and what people want, that's how you get the most money out of situations. And so how did things play out reporting directly to the director? Well, things were fine because even though I told him I would work my ass off, he was one level abstracted away from the math and the code. So because I was in a position where no one with my level of technical competence was really reviewing my work, and it was just him above me, because he trusted that I was doing high quality work and being hyper productive, he couldn't really gauge whether my pace of productivity was good or bad. But I would basically employ a strategy that I call bursty working, which is working in bursts so that someone like him who is trying to estimate my productivity is only able to see my high watermarks and then is making estimations about my productivity off those high watermarks. So for example, most people in a corporate setting, they're always in one gear. They're either working their ass off in 5th gear, or they're just a normal performer in 3rd gear, or they're a lazy slacker in 1st gear. And most people don't shift gears very often. And so managers sort of make these lazy assumptions that you're, this guy's a 5th gear worker, this guy's a 3rd gear worker. So what you want to do when you deploy this bursty working strategy is in bursts, you want to be working in 5th gear, 6th gear, if that's such a thing. Just like that first project I worked on for him, the high visibility project for the founder, where I got I stood up that whole crypto tech stack for him in 1 week. About once a month, I would work my ass off on a project and get it done really quickly. And then the rest of the month, I would just hang out and do very little work. And because of the pace of productivity and the output of that one project a month, he would just assume that I'm working my ass off on other things, because I was always juggling multiple things at the same time. So he would just assume I'm bogged down on other projects or like helping other teams set things up to help our team out. And so I was able to just basically hang out the rest of the month And yeah, this bursty working strategy, it works really well. Managers who don't have the technical expertise to measure what you're working on, you can kind of exploit that gap in their knowledge there through this bursty working strategy. And to use more technical jargon, basically they're downsampling your work and filtering only on high watermarks to measure your pace of productivity. So in understanding how much they know and how much they don't know, you can control the narrative of how productive you're being at the job. So in this particular case, right, this director was not super technical. He was kind of technical, but not really that technical. And so you can just kind of explain things to him and make them sound like they would take way longer and are way more complicated, and then get it done in a fraction of the time and have him think that you're some kind of genius. So yeah, I continue to deploy this bursty working strategy, and about 6 months passes, and everyone kind of goes through me to talk to the director because they like me and they trust me. And so I have eyes and ears across the firm, and I know that this tech director is going to get pushed out soon, so I'm not going to have to work these ridiculous 50 to 100 hour work weeks anymore for him. And then this 360 review happens where people review him from other departments, and yeah, he gets pushed out, he gets fired immediately, a week after that, which pretty much I expected. And then basically I get promoted into another role that's not his role, but is sort of filling in the gap a little bit for some of the stuff he did. And I get another $100,000 raise at that point, and then I get to keep my kind of lofty position as the head of that hedge fund division, where I have trading, quant, tech, and operations all reporting to me in weekly stand-up meetings. And so, yeah, that was a perfectly executed way to kind of finesse my way into a higher title and into a way higher comp. That's generally how I did it. So I hope you learned something about how to navigate the world of corporate politics and kind of the psychology behind how people judge you at work and what they're thinking when they're deciding whether to give you a raise or to demote you or whatever. All right, take care.